You. Hope you're doing well. I know I'm doing well. Remember, everybody, hit that subscribe button, whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you're listening to a podcast. Hit that subscribe button. We really need your support as we are a young and starving little podcast and video podcast. Would love to get all the support that we possibly can. Today's episode is going to be about how bosses, yes, bosses, how bosses actually sabotage your career. There's a number of things that I'll point out. Some are very similar, but I'll just point those out throughout this episode of how bosses sabotage your career. Number one, and this isn't necessarily someone who is a saboteur, but oftentimes someone trying to sabotage your career is trying to make you feel bad. And so they'll point out your weaknesses a lot. They'll bring things up from years ago, months ago, weeks ago, days ago that you have maybe apologized for, or that, clear heads have prevailed, or hey, you didn't prepare for this, or hey, this thing was turned upside down, or hey, things got crazy, and the sign up sheet was all wrong, whatever the case might be. All right, and they'll bring those things up. It could be one in a thousand. One, you make a mistake one in a thousand times, and they will bring it up. And what, in essence, by bringing it up, they just want to make you feel bad, and they want to make themselves feel better. They want to make you feel bad, and they want to make themselves feel better. Now, sometimes they're just a jerk, sometimes they're a bully, but it does lead to some sabotage because your confidence level will go down. It's your boss saying something kind of meanish, or bringing things up that you thought were done, that you were over, that things had been talked about. Point two uh, is your boss doesn't put you on the bigger projects. The ones that will get a lot of eyeballs, the ones that the senior executives will be looking at, the ones that might have direct access to the senior executives. For instance, you might be making a video. In my case, I did a lot of marketing. You may be interviewing senior executives for a video, and maybe your boss chooses someone else, or they go in and they're the ones in charge of the video production, the ones asking the boss questions, the one getting the boss ready, handing them the files. Even if you're not part of, like, let's say, a video project or some big project, the boss will say to you, "Oh, Tom, can you send me that the research you have? Can you give me bullet points of the messaging? Can you give me the questions?" And they send the questions to their boss or to that senior leader, not you. And what that does, in essence, not sometimes I can see that, but remember, it's good to be part of that conversation. That way, that senior leader knows that you're part of this. By not being able to send an email, by not you personally sending those bullet point messages or the questions to that senior leader, the senior leader doesn't even know that you're involved. They might think you're working on something else. They might think that you're not good enough to work on this project. Good bosses, and bosses that are not trying to sabotage your career, will let you send those emails directly. Meet with them directly, whatever it might be. Send those questions and answers directly. The another sabotage element to a boss is when they make you work on projects with other people or the same person every time. You two get together. You two get together. You two get together. Why don't you work on this? And why I say that is oftentimes that other person you're working with, or the other people you're working with, if it's different people, have a better relationship with the boss than you. You got to watch for that. Okay. If you don't know the person, kind of feel them out, ask some questions, try to be coy. But if you know the person and you know that the boss talks about them in a nice way, or they're always joking around in meetings, or you can just tell that they get along really well, they go to lunch together, they hang out on the weekends or after work, it's probably not a good sign. Bosses sabotage workers for two big reasons. One is they don't want you to leave them because you make them better. Okay. And I've seen that. I've seen really good people where bosses will not promote them, will not give them more responsibilities, will not allow them to transfer, will not allow them to take a job in a different department because they feel like they need that person to continue to be promoted and, to get raises and all of it other kind of stuff. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is for whatever reason, they don't like you. They just don't like you. It's a personality thing. Maybe they, in my case, maybe they prefer younger people. Maybe they prefer more handsome and prettier people. Maybe they prefer working with women. Maybe they prefer working with all kinds of way you slice it up. Those things happen. Now, sometimes it's not as much as appearance. Maybe they just don't like you. Maybe in my case, I have a lot of experience and I don't really BS around. I'll say, why are we doing it like this? We've done it like this. I know we need to change things. We can do it like that, but by doing it like that, it's going to cause these two other problems here. And bosses don't like that. I'm not a complete and utter yes, kiss ass kind of person. I'm going to bring my experience, my skill set to the table and work out problems. I used to really like to play devil's advocate, and I realized very quickly with one of my bosses that that is not what he wanted to hear at all. That he wanted all yes men, and he wanted pretty girls working around him, pretty young ladies. And I'm not a pretty young lady. I'm not young. I'm not pretty, and I'm not a lady. And that was not a good mix. So you realize some of those things, and it's the other aspect too, and this is kind of related to the other ones, is another point here is you're not invited to meetings or calls. Like sometimes meetings or calls come up. Oh, we got to get together at 2 o'clock, and you're not on that call. Or you find out from your coworker that, and I'll get to this in a second, um, they're giving the coworker more responsibility, or the coworker announces that, oh, I met with our boss, I talked to Bill, I talked to Sue, whatever your boss's name is, and they told me to do this, or they said look out for this, and you're like, why aren't they talking to me? That leads to another point of, your coworkers are giving you assignments kind of from the boss. Like, hey, I talked to Bill and he said that he wanted us to work on this together. I talked to Bill and he said that we're working on this. He said that you should work on this aspect and I'll work on this aspect. Here's the problem with that, okay? Maybe your boss doesn't like you. Maybe they're very busy. Maybe they're disorganized, whatever the case is. But when you get an assignment from a coworker, someone who's at your level, it raises a ton of red flags, including they're obviously meeting and not talking, and you're not invited because you didn't know about that assignment. Um, then another red flag is what else are they saying? Why is this other person involved? Why isn't my boss coming to us and giving us this assignment if they're doing it on a regular basis? Why is that? Now, if it's a one off, like, hey, he or she was on vacation, or he or she was traveling, or he or she was really busy, and I just ran into them in the hall and they said, we need to start working on that. Okay, if it's a one off, no big deal. But if it's something that recurs on a regular, frequent basis, like monthly, weekly, daily, whatever it is, that's a huge red flag. And the more it happens, the more of a red flag it is, because what conversations and what is your coworker saying about you? What is your boss saying about you? And why is this coworker constantly the go between? You know, and again, sometimes bosses don't realize this, but what you have to do is get yourself into that room somehow, whether you're not on a call, whether you're not in a meeting with your coworker who's going to give you the assignment, whether you're not on a project that has senior executives involved. Get yourself together, do your research, outshine everybody else around you, and maybe that thing will stick. Maybe your boss will look at you in a different light. However, if you feel like your boss keeps you around to make he or she better, or be promoted, that's not a good sign to do. It's not a good thing to do because you're doing more of it, and they're just going to be like, okay, I need to really keep them at bay, you know. And when your boss gives bigger projects, this is kind of similar to the other ones, but when your boss gives bigger projects to other people, that's a red flag too. That's something you have to worry about, of them sabotaging you. Why are they giving other people? Do they want the other people to shine? Or are they keeping the project and they're fearful that you will outshine them? You know, sometimes you're not on a call because your boss knows that you know everything about that subject and they don't want you showing them up. Other times you're not on the call because your boss doesn't think that you're good enough, smart enough, strong enough, um, uh, with it, know enough about it. And why is that? Show them that you have that, but you have to know, you have to have an idea as to what they're thinking about and why you weren't involved in that project or meeting or discussion. Now, you don't have to play like 20 questions with anyone. You don't have to ask a ton of questions to figure out. Don't look panicky. Don't look nervous. Don't look defensive, but just be subtle. Maybe over the next week or two, you pepper a few questions here or there with somebody, you pepper a few questions here or there, or in some cases maybe someone who was at that meeting is a good friend of yours and someone that you can trust. Although even in the workplace you can't trust everybody. Even if you think they're your good friend, people always have limits. I used to work with people that thought they were best friends, and one of the people would sometimes not say good things about the other person, and I was always surprised by that, because I thought that they were people like me, people who liked each other and people that wouldn't say something negative in front of a boss or a colleague, or show that there was any mistrust or questioning their ability kind of thing. But those are the things that happen at work. And, and bosses sometimes, you have to understand, are they sabotaging your career? You have to make sure, are they leaving you out of things? Why are they leaving you out of things? Are you their protection? If they keep you around, do they get promoted? Do they get raises? Is that a good thing? And then there is a third outlier, wild card, if you will. Sometimes bosses, and you can notice this, are just disorganized, forgetful, don't realize what's going on around them, don't see things for what they are. Those kinds of bosses are the ones like I had many, many years ago. I worked at a place that had, I don't know, 50, 60 people in it. And I had a boss, and they used to give employee of the month awards out. And this boss just assumed that over the 36 months plus that I worked there, that, oh yeah, you've won employee of the month, and you'd get like a little stipend, and you get to park next to the building or something like that. Okay. And I worked. I came in. We had to be there at 8 or 8:30. I would be there at 8 or 8:30 every single day. I would leave earlier than other people, and sometimes when you're the person that leaves at 6 o'clock and everyone's there, just brown nosing, putting in the hours that they think that the company wants you to put in. Um, Other people around, bosses who are still there, like that. Now, the way I've always interpreted it, the way I've always looked at it is, when it comes to work, when it comes to my personal side, I'm not organized. When it comes to work, I'm extraordinarily organized. I have I write down and I have electric copies of everything I'm going to do every single day for the next week, for next week, and I go forward that way. Sometimes I make spreadsheets, all of that other kind of stuff. Okay. Very organized when it comes to that. And what I realized was, for whatever reason, sometimes I can do things faster than the other people around me. So something that might take someone, let's just say 2.5 hours, might take me an hour and a half. Something that might take someone 4 hours takes me an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So I don't need that extra time. All right. I can still get my billable hours in. If I'm working at an agency, I can get my billable hours in. I can get the work completed, but then I have to stick around till 7 o'clock for another 2 hours because I have to have FaceTime, not the Apple app, but FaceTime. Like, I have to show my face in the office until 7 o'clock. And people really liked that. I would leave at 6. People would be there till 7, 7:30. I did all my work. I got great results. People used to pull me in on other teams to get results for them, so I knew what I was doing was correct. I always had pretty good performance reviews. I was doing things. They would challenge me to think a certain way, be strategic a certain way. I would meet those challenges on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. And so my boss thought that I'd won employee of the month. And when I informed him that I hadn't, he was surprised. No stipend, no better parking. And that was when I was leaving. So there are two main theories why a boss sabotages you, but you also one that's easy to tell because people who are disorganized, you know when they're disorganized. You can look at their desk, you can see by their calendar, you know if they double book things or they're not ready for a meeting or they forget things constantly and they're asking you to remind them or to do things that you've already turned in a day or two earlier or a week ago. So you know that one, okay? But there is that thought process. But usually it's because they want you for themselves because they rely on you, but they'll never admit it. And that bonus that a normal good boss would give to you, they're keeping, which totally wrong. But in some corporate jobs that I've had, boss will get like a pot of money and they'll be able to divvy it up however they want. And they'll recommend that they get you know, uh, 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 an increase in salary or a bonus or whatever it is themselves, which is doesn't make any sense to me at all. How you can give yourself money, but how you cannot split the pie fairly. But just know that there is that third reason. But mostly it's because they want to protect you, use you. They can't live without you, kind of thing. And you hear that a lot when people leave after 30 years there and they retire, or they just don't like you. And there's many, many, many. I've seen many different reasons. I've had people like me a lot, trust me a lot, and then turn on me because I don't always agree with them. I'm going to be who I'm going to be every single day of my life. All right. I'm going to think things through, come up with a plan, come up with my way forward, and I'm going to go that way. And if for some reason, now sometimes I know I'm not going to die on that hill. Like I'm not going to challenge it. But if I feel strongly enough, I'm going to. I had partners. Now they're not bosses, but they kind of are because they had more authority than me, and they wanted to take the company one way, the three of them, and I wanted to take the company another way, and we just disagreed, and they voted me out. It was that simple. They voted me out. It is what it is. I wanted to expand the company, grow the company, move things forward, have a bigger footprint, add to our offices, really look at things, and they wanted to use it as an annuity, so that they could get paid out once they retire from there. They were older than I was, and those things happen. So just know that yes, it's true. You may have, you might currently have a boss that's a saboteur of your career. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Remember, we have a podcast by the same name. We have a video channel on YouTube by the same name. Hit that subscribe button. We really need your support. Thank you very much for watching.